Hello, welcome to Bob's Dungeon. My name's Bob, I'll be your host. And in tabletop role playing games, by far probably the most famous genre in tabletop role playing games is the fantasy setting. The most famous among those would be Dungeons and Dragons, which uses the D20 system. And there are other fantasy style games that use either a version of the D20 system or something very close in which D20 is the main die. Stuff like Pathfinder, Dungeon Crawl Classics, Lamentations of Flame Princess. Even Palladium Fantasy Roleplay could be considered somewhat of a D20 system, even though it uses a percentile for the skills. It uses a D20 for the main combat. Then there are other systems that have fantasy games out there that use systems that do not use a 20-sided die. You could include Vampire of the Dark Ages in with that, sorta. And a few other games. The game we're going to talk about in this video, though, is one of those other games. We're going to talk about D6 Fantasy. This book has 144 pages and a copyright of 2004. It was published by West End Games, and all of the artwork in this book is in black and white. It's pretty decent. So let's go ahead and look at that artwork. All of the artwork in this book is in black and white. And it's pretty decent artwork as well. And does a good job of showcasing the fantasy setting in this book. To play this game, what you're going to need is, of course, a copy of this core rulebook and as many six-sided dice as you can get your hands on. The rules are pretty simple in this game. Character creation is very easy, and it gives you two ways to make characters. I'll go over the way that I like the best and give you some highlights on the other way. But first, you have your attributes. The attributes used in this game are agility, coordination, physique, charisma, intellect, acumen, and extra normal. Those are your attributes. You'll get 18 dice to split up amongst them. And you have to have at least one die in each of them, and they can go no higher than 5. Now, there is an exception to this, and that is extra normal. If you don't plan on casting spells or anything like that, then you can leave that attribute as nothing. You can leave it blank. You don't have to put anything in it unless you're going to be a wizard or a cleric or something like that. After that, you get 7 dots to split up amongst your skills. And there are lots of skills in here. Each of them is based off of an attribute. And you can't put more than 3 dots in a skill itself. But the skill, when you go to roll it, you add it with the attribute. So if you have 3 dots in a skill and 2 dots in the attribute, that's a 5-dot skill roll, like 5-die skill roll. So that's pretty simple. Your move is equal to 10. And then the next part is kind of weird. You have body points, which are like hit points. And the way you figure them up is you make a physique roll and add 20 to it. However, if your game master doesn't want to use body points, he can use what's called wounds, and then you got a set number of wounds for your character. No formula to figure that up. After that, you figure up your strength damage, and your strength damage is the dice. Each weapon in the game has a die code to it, and you add that to your strength damage when you're rolling damage in combat. And the way you figure it up is it's either a physique or a lifting roll. Lifting is a skill, physique is an attribute. And you divide the total by 2, rounding up, and that'll give you your damage, your strength damage. After strength damage, you figure up your funds and silver. And there are 2 ways to do this. And the first is, instead of having actual gold pieces or silver or what have you. You have a fun score, which is at character creation 3 dice. And whenever you go to make a purchase, you make a roll with those 3 dice to see if you can purchase the item. If you don't want to do, if the game master doesn't want to do that, he can issue 60 silver pieces at character creation, and have everything cost like in a regular game, which is probably what most people are used to. After that, you'll get 5 character points for your starting character. We'll talk about more about character points here in a bit. And you'll also get 1 fate point. Again, we'll talk about fate points later. Now, that's character creation after you buy your equipment. Unless, of course, you want to do a little extra to your character, then there's the option of advantages, disadvantages, and special abilities. And these will cost you a number of attribute or skill points to buy or give them to you if they're a disadvantage. And it has a lot in here you can do. But that's the form of character creation I prefer to use in this game. There is also a way to create characters in this game where everybody starts with 79 creation points. And you buy your attributes and your skills and your special abilities and everything out of those points. And it has a table telling you how much everything costs, which is pretty nifty. It just depends on how your game master wishes to do it. And character creation, everybody's making up a human. Now, there are rules in here for you to make up dwarves, elves, gnomes, and reptile folk as a starting character. And it also has some rules for creating some new races for your game if you wish. And that's character creation in a nutshell. The rules in this game are pretty simple. You roll a number of 6-sided dice to accomplish a task. And they're determined by how much your skills and your attributes are worth. And you roll the dice compared to a difficulty number that the Game Master sets. If you surpass that number or equal it, you succeed. If you roll under it, you fail. It's pretty simple. And at the end of each game, you're rewarded character points. And character points can be spent in one of 2 ways. And the first way you spend them is when you go to make a roll, you spend a couple of character points to add an extra die to your roll, 1 per character point. And it's also used to advance your character. When you want to raise a skill or an attribute, you spend character points to do so. And it lets you in on all the costs in here. Your fate points are used when you're making a roll. You can spend a fate point and double the amount of dice you roll. Now, you cannot spend a fate point and a character point in the same round for the same action. So, you got to decide on what you're going to do beforehand. And that's pretty simple. That's all there really is to the rules. Your armor is used to reduce damage instead of giving you an armor class. And that's pretty neat. You can dodge attacks and so forth. It's got all kinds of nifty rules in here. And there's no set campaign in the game. So you come up with whatever you want. Put it in whatever kind of fantasy setting you want. Which I think is really neat. Because I love to create worlds and places for my players to be in. There's a pretty cool magic system in here. Your extra normal attribute allows you to cast spells. And there are 2 different types of spells in this game. There are, of course, the wizardry spells and the holy spells for cleric type characters. And it's got some spells for each of them printed in the book that you can use. It also gives you a system to create new spells. Now, creating new spells is not difficult. It's a little time consuming because you got to add a lot of stuff together as you make your decisions on range and damage and everything. But once you get all that together, it's pretty simple, pretty straightforward, just time consuming and a little bit fiddly. So that's pretty neat. There's some creatures in the back, not very many, just a few to get you going. And it gives you some rules to create your own creatures. Now, there is a book out there called D6 Fantasy Creatures that gives you a lot more creatures to add to your game, or you can just go ahead and make them up yourself. Some people have a little trouble doing that. I don't. I've played the D6 system for years, so I kind of know how to do it. But the best advice I can give you there, if you're having some trouble understanding it, is just to go with what feels right for you. You don't have to ironclad their creation rules in here. If they're giving you some trouble, just do what you feel is right and try not to go overboard. That's the best advice I can give there. And it's got some pre-generated characters they call templates in here that you can use for your character if you don't feel like creating one. It's got blank character sheet in the back. And that's pretty much all there is to it. Which brings me to 3 questions. Would I play a character in this game? Absolutely. I love the D6 system, and I haven't actually got to play the D6 fantasy game itself, but I would definitely play a character in it. Would I run it? Again, I would. I've played different D6 games for years, mostly Star Wars. I did a G.I. Joe game in the D6 system before. I'd done a game where everybody was playing toys once, which was very interesting, and a bunch of other stuff using the D6 system. So yes, I would play a character in this game. Would I recommend this game? Again, yes. It's a very easy game to learn, very easy to run, and if you're looking for a fantasy game other than Dungeons & Dragons or Pathfinder to play, this would definitely be a good route for you to go down and check out. So, thank you for joining me at a look at this game, and hopefully you'll join me next time where we'll talk about something else. Bye.